Welcome to Take the Exit, the podcast where we explore the stories that intersect with transportation in Illinois. So, one of the ways that we've kind of danced around this a little bit, one of the ways that we make an impact at IDOT is through all the highway projects, and for better or worse, it has to be done, right? Even if it's frustrating and driving through at times. So let's talk about project timelines a little bit. Mm-hmm. What is happening behind the scenes up to the point where we are driving through those work zones? So a project is announced. What does that mean? What happens? Like, what is the, what we're seeing is the tip of the iceberg, I guess you could say. What leads up to all that? It's a lot.
It is a lot. Yeah. And you're right. I think a lot of people maybe don't think about that or recognize all of the work that happens, prior to the construction projects actually being out, in the field and then a person is dealing with construction traffic. And there's a lot of prep work for that. And it really kind of depends on the size of the project. It depends on a number of different factors. Of course, some of our bigger, major river bridge projects, those are sometimes in the pipeline for, a decade or longer. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people don't realize, but a lot of it is, even just the process of securing funding for a project that large. It takes a lot of time to be able to get all of those funding mechanisms in place. And then, a lot of the collaboration that's happening behind the scenes, especially when you're talking about a big river crossing, for instance. A lot of times we're working with our agencies across the river, right? And a lot of times that's another state agency. Right. There's environmental reviews. We do quite a bit to make sure that, we minimize our impact to the environment. That's really important to us. And so we do a lot to try to mitigate that. Oftentimes we'll try to avoid any sort of, impacts at all, but sometimes that's not possible. So then
Sure.
The next best option is to try to mitigate that, and depending on the impact, then we try to, again, coordinate that to the best of our ability. So there's a lot of prep work, even before you get to designing the project. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, just designing the project, making sure that we're taking into consideration all the safety aspects, making sure that we are trying to incorporate the needs of all the communities that we're working with as well. That's also very important to us. It just depends on who's involved and how much prep work there is, but it's not uncommon to have several years of prep work on some of these projects.
Let's talk about the I-255 project a little bit. That was one. It was kind of a unique project that ended up coming in on schedule faster because we were able to do some different things there. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're referring to the 255 project that we had down in the Metro East area. Mm-hmm. We've done a couple of them now where we've actually closed the interstate entirely for
both directions
for a few months. That was a new concept to us in Illinois. I think it was the first full interstate closure that we had done, I think, in the state.
Okay.
And this was a few years ago when we did the first segment of that. And it really opened our eyes to some of the possibilities. And so we just completed another segment of that just mm-hmm. here recently. But I think that, and I mentioned this earlier, I think, but engineers, is what we do. We're solving problems. We're trying to figure out how can we do things better? How can we do things faster? How can we do things faster, safer, cheaper, all of the things. 255 was a very unique situation in some ways because of its proximity to some of the other big interstates that are surrounding the Metro East. So we were very fortunate in that case to be able to tap into that and try something new, try something we hadn't tried in a while or ever. But it was very successful. I think if we have found that if we can close a project, any time that you can close a road completely, let the contractor have access to it completely, you're speeding up the work, no doubt. You're also making the area safer for motorists, because you're not having motorists driving alongside, workers that are, working in the area. A lot of times we can eliminate the queues completely, the traffic queues, which is also a concern for us on safety. So there's a lot of benefits to that and being able to do that. But not every project will lend itself well to that. It just really depends on, what other roadways you have nearby, and, how you can manage traffic around that area. But it is definitely something that we're looking at in other areas of the state, because we've proven that it is something that we can do, and we can do, we can really be successful with it. So it just kind of depends, but it's just one more tool in our toolbox, I would say, and we're constantly looking for new tools.
So what are some other project delivery methods that improve efficiencies like that?
So some of the new ones that we're really starting to pursue now are what we call design build. There's a progressive design build, and then kind of a softer, lighter version of that is what we call CMGC. It's a little bit more of a partnership along the way rather than just kind of handing it all over to the contractor.
Sure.
But we've got some projects that are in the pipeline that, we're looking at doing these kinds of procurements. And the idea being there, again, it's trying to put yourself into a situation where you're streamlining things. You're able to potentially, for instance, in a full design build, you're really basically handing it all over to the contractor and saying, okay, you design it, you build it, and here's the parameters and here's the framework that you have to work within. Usually pay a little more for some of these, because you're paying for the contractor's risks in some of these instances. But sometimes that cost benefit can weigh out to be a better solution, because you're minimizing all of the impacts to the public, because of the time frames and things like that. So it all comes into play as, again, another tool in the toolbox, right?
Sure. So design build is sort of a buzz term that we're hearing now. How does that compare to, I guess, what you would consider a traditional method of project delivery?
That's a good question. So traditionally, what most of the transportation industry across the U.S. Traditionally does what we call a design bid build.
Okay.
That means that the owner designs the project. We do all of the environmental clearances. We do all of the public coordination. We design the project. We get it to the point where it's a package that can be bid out. Okay. Then we bid the package out. The contractor bids on it, says, I will do this work for X amount. It's usually a matter of a number of pay items that we estimate quantities on, and they basically bid those quantities and those pay items, and then we oversee the contractor's construction, and then we pay them for what they've done. So that's the traditional. It's very I'm simplifying a very complex process,
sure. But that's the model.
But that's the model. It's a design bid build. Then the opposite end of the spectrum is what we would call design build, which Illinois just in the last few years got approval to do some design build projects. So we've got some of those kind of in the pipeline. But a full-blown design build would be where we basically, again, we put some parameters in place. We tell the contractor, okay, here's kind of the scope of work. This is kind of what we want you to do. And then we hand that to the contractor, and we say, basically, bring on a designer. You design it, you build it, you tell us, basically for a lump sum cost at that point. So the contractor says, okay, I'm going to design it and build it, and I'm going to charge you this much for it. That also means the contractor's taking on quite a bit of risk, because, a lot of times you don't realize, what you're getting into. so sometimes that cost will reflect that risk. But, the benefits of that, again, is a lot of times you can get a project out the door faster. Okay. Because the contractor has onus
into that construction phase.
Into the construction phase faster, because sometimes they're able to start the construction and then be designing some of the later things along the way. So you don't have to have this full, complete package from the get-go. Okay. And it also allows the contractor to really, really tap into those innovative solutions that they may have, that they may be aware of, that the designers on our side may not be aware of. Okay. So that really allows them to tap into that innovation and potentially get that done a little faster or cheaper than we may have, come up with.
Sure.
Then you have that what I would call that kind of that in between, which there's a couple of them. It's a CMGC, and then there's another one that's progressive design build. But they're kind of in between both of those.
So it's a spectrum.
Those spectrums.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So wherever a project falls on that spectrum, how important and how much do we consider at IDOT the public involvement portion of that?
Very much so. So aside from, your very simple, resurfacing contract that doesn't really touch anybody, I would say most of our projects have quite a bit of public involvement. We talked about, the environmental side of our reviews and things that we look at to try to minimize impact. We do the same thing on the public side.
Sure.
We try to make sure that we're, first of all, coordinating with our communities, understanding what the needs of the communities are, understanding, if we're going to do this project, what could we do differently that could, that could assist the community and things like that. And then ultimately, it's the property owners, it's the people that, we're potentially impacting them from a land use perspective. Well, obviously, we meet with them, we talk through, what we're looking at, what we're needing to do, and there's quite a bit of that. Then you get into some of those larger projects where we hold public hearings, we hold public meetings where we invite the public in to talk through the different alternatives that we're looking at to solve our problem. Again, we're problem solvers, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times what we'll do is we'll look at the problem, we'll look at all the different possible solutions, and then we'll start to tick some off that we know are just not feasible for one reason or another.
Sure.
And then we kind of get down to kind of that smaller group of what we consider to be feasible options. And then we meet with the public, and we have some really good conversations with people who live in that community and say, hey, what are some things that you see, good or bad or ugly, of any of these options? Do you have something else we should consider? Is there some other piece that we aren't aware of that we need to be taking into consideration? And so we ask the public to comment. We ask them to comment both verbally and then also in writing to help us solidify what some of those suggestions are, and then that helps drive our decisions as we move forward into design.
So it's really important when we ask for your opinion that you give it to us.
Absolutely. We want to know.
Yeah.
We say this all the time, but we can't solve a problem we don't know exists, right? And so we're very good at solving problems, but we need to know what the problems are.
Sure.
So we do our best to try to get that information. We got a lot of different avenues on which we try to do that, but yeah, we always welcome that.
And I don't know if it's a specific project or type of project or something in recent memory that you can think of that's been transformational for our community or that has had a really big impact that you're proud of that you can speak to.
Oh my goodness. Boy, that's a hard one. There's so many. I think I mentioned earlier, I feel like I find a lot of sense of value in being able to really help take these projects across the finish line. I think what's really rewarding to me, and has been throughout the course of my career, and there's many projects, so I don't know if I can
it's hard to
single
pick just
out one.
Mm-hmm.
But there are so many in which we see a community that's been trying really hard to get something in place or to solve a problem that they've been dealing with for years, and being able to help facilitate that, whether it's through a state project, whether it's through helping them coordinate their local project. That is such a big impact to communities and people. That's so rewarding. And I think
even if it's got like a small dollar figure attached
absolutely,
to it, yes.
Absolutely. I think a lot of us, we get really focused on those big projects, and don't get me wrong, they're impactful and they're huge and they're amazing, mm-hmm. and they impact a lot of people. So they're great. I mean, the Mississippi River Bridge project down in Southern Illinois, that's a huge one. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of collaboration over the years. It was 30 some odd contracts that we had at one point in time, and there's a lot. I mean, the I-80 that's going on up in Chicago. I mean, these are huge projects, hugely impactful to millions of drivers. But I think we also have to focus on the little ones, the ones that when you look at those against the big ones, they might not look like much, but they're huge, and they're huge for the people that have been needing that. And so I get a lot of pride in being able to be part of that solution. And, I think it's just as important for us to have those conversations as it is for us to have the conversations on the grand scale.
Okay, so out of all of those things, what do you think IDOT does really well? And then on the opposite side of that, what is there room to improve upon?
Oh my goodness, we're not very good at talking about what we do well, which is part of, I guess,
why we're
maybe
trying
our
to do
fault,
that here
right?
today. Yes,
exactly. And I appreciate that because I feel like because we are so focused on solving the problems, we're very good at solving problems. We're very good at, give us a challenge, we'll find a solution.
Okay.
We're very good at that. And I think there's a lot of ideas and proactive approaches happening behind the scenes that we're not really maybe very good at sharing.
Okay.
To let people know what we're doing. Okay.
So we should probably talk more after this.
We should talk more.
Yeah.
We should. And again, I mean, these things are great because, just being able to talk about it, just, pause for a minute and talk about it. Mm-hmm. Because we are busy. We have a lot of work going on in the state of Illinois, and this is a good thing.
Yes.
But we're very, very busy. And so, we hunker down and we get the work done, and the next problem comes and we focus on that. And we're getting things done, and we're getting them done well. But yeah, the opportunity to reflect, I think, is important. So hopefully we'll be able to do that a little more.
What's coming next? What sort of innovations in transportation make you excited, whether it's equipment, materials, what's new, what's next?
So you guys know in your own personal lives, technology is just going crazy.
Sure.
And it's going crazy in the transportation world too. And it's exciting. It's exciting to see all of these new technologies that are coming out. And I mean, just the 3D plans that we're talking about, we're trying to get some 3D plans out the door. That's huge. And I don't know if the public knows what that is, but
sure.
Traditionally we've used what you consider 2D sets of plans, right? We create a set of plans, we print it out on paper, but of course in today's technology it's on a PDF or some sort of
right.
Digital format, but ultimately it's lines on a paper, right? We're morphing into this 3D technology where we can basically give the contractor a data file. So we design it, it's all in a data file, and then we hand it to the contractor. They have the equipment to read it, and then they're able to build it based on this data file. So it's huge. There's a lot of work being done to try to get us from where we were to where we want to be.
We've had a huge digital delivery grant.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Huge, yes.
Okay.
And we're in the process of trying to get all of that, mapped out now. But we've been working on it for a long time. We've been partnering with the tollway, with industry, both on the contractor side and also on the consultant side, so that everybody's moving in this direction together. And it's exciting. This is a whole new way of doing business, and we're excited about that. The other piece of it, just from my construction background, that I'm also excited about is being able to use AI in some of our inspection tools.
Okay.
So historically, in order to, a lot of times we have the design, bid, build, process. And so for us to pay a contractor based on what they've built, we have to measure those quantities. We have to measure, what they've actually performed so that we can pay them appropriately, because we pay per how much you've done. So now, historically, over the course of time, that's been a lot of hand measurements. And, I say hand measurements. I mean, some of those are using, survey tools and things like that. But this is opening up a whole new possibility for us, where you can use AI tools to, say, just scan a video of the area, and it measures it and it knows, and you can use that information to pay the contractor and not have to do all those measurements by hand. So this is huge. Obviously, new tools are popping up every day, but that's just another example of some of the things that we're looking at to try to help us.
So a lot of what the work that we do is under the umbrella of Rebuild Illinois and the funding behind that. What do you feel like the impact of Rebuild Illinois has been on the transportation infrastructure in Illinois?
It's been huge. Rebuild Illinois was huge. I know it was many, many years in the making, and ultimately, as a bipartisan bill. I think it was passed in 2019, I think. But basically, it increased the revenue for transportation in Illinois, which was long overdue. We had been basically primarily funded through a gas tax that hadn't been raised in, I think, 25 years, I think it was.
Okay.
And so, inflation has changed things quite a bit, specifically in the highway construction industry. Inflation is I think we've looked back 30 years ago. If you did a project 30 years ago, if you were to do it today, it'd be 3 times the cost. So we're talking,
that's significant.
Significant. So Rebuild Illinois was a huge help to us. I think you might remember back a few years where our infrastructure was literally crumbling. We were, just problem solving ourselves into oblivion, trying to, keep up with the maintenance activities, trying to keep us, into a situation where our infrastructure could hold. But today we're in a different environment, and we're so, so thankful because Rebuild Illinois has been huge for us. But now we're able to actually make, long-term improvements, right? You've probably seen it. If you've driven around Illinois, you've seen we've got construction projects everywhere. But these are projects that are overdue. These are projects that we have been needing to do for a long time.
You're not just plugging the holes with bubble gum anymore.
No, we are actually, getting the real work done. And so it's a huge impact to us. And then we're also able to move forward with some of these projects that were maybe more of our expansion projects, not so much, maintenance in the sense of, maintaining our current infrastructure,
right.
but
Making
more of those
better.
Expansions.
Yes.
And we kind of put them in 2 different buckets. I mean, even a large rehab project might be considered maintenance because you're maintaining your existing infrastructure. You're not
adding a lane,
making new, right, exactly. You're not making new routes or, adding, capacity. But now we've been able to start moving forward on some of those capacity building projects that have were held just because of funding restraints. So,
okay.
It's exciting. Got a lot of big things happening and a lot more to come. So, yeah, got a lot of work, a lot of opportunities for employment. If people are looking, we're hiring. So, got to put a shameless plug in there. But
Of course, always.
But no, we're definitely in a good spot. And, the transportation industry is a great place to be right now.
Okay, Lora Rensing, anything else?
Just thank you for the opportunity. This has been very fun. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on Take the Exit. And we will look forward to hearing more from you in the future.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Thanks for riding along with IDOT. This has been Take the Exit. For more inside information on transportation in Illinois, find us on social media or idot.illinois.gov.